Welcome, everyone. We're delighted to have you on the 340B 101 Social Media Advocacy webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Whether you're a novice or an expert on social media, I think you're going to get something really important out of this webinar today. And you have a host of really social media pros on this call. I'm not including myself in that. The other ladies on the phone today are social media pros, and you're going to learn so much from them. So we have a lot to talk about. So my remarks will be very brief. Just to thank NAC for working with us. We're thrilled to have NAC advocacy folks on the phone, Sarah and Jennifer, who you'll meet in a second if you haven't met them already. And we also have Sheila with the Florida Association of Community Health Centers. I work with Community Voices for 340B with Rhiannon Marshall Klein, who's also on the phone, who's going to take you through a lot of, I think, this very valuable information. But I'd also like to start by saying, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Because we are in the fight of our lives for 340B. And the way to win this fight, we strongly believe, is through the court of public opinion. In other words, social media is going to be our greatest weapon. We believe that firmly. Thank you for those who are already participating in supporting the 340B community of stakeholders and covered entities using social media or the other things that you're doing and just running your programs. So we appreciate you for who you are and what you're doing, and we hope to help you do even more to fight this very important fight. And now I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Rhiannon.
Yes, welcome everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. So let's see if I can, there we go. All right. So our agenda today is on your screen. Before I get to our agenda, we are using menti.com today. So if you'd like to participate in our interactive features, go ahead and go to menti.com and use the code 42156706. It is a fun way to get involved. So our agenda today, we're going to kick ourselves off with Sheila. She is going to be talking about Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn platform overviews. And then we're going to move on to Sarah and myself talking about 340B storytelling for social media. And last but certainly not least will be Jennifer doing some social media resources. So let's get started. First poll, and you guys have already done it. So feel free to go onto menti.com. How confident do you feel using the following platforms? Very confident, not confident at all. So we have Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn in here. Oh, look, it's moving. I love this. So it looks like Twitter is the one that we're looking like we're least confident about, which makes sense to me. All right, I'll let that settle out and then we will move on. So here is our Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn platform overview. Over to you, Sheila.
Okay, thank you, Rhiannon. So I am not at all surprised that Twitter was the one that everyone is least confident in. Twitter originated as a microblogging site, so it is open for public conversation. That's where you're going to get a lot of input about what you post regarding your social media advocacy. So here are a few stats to take into consideration before you dive into Twitter. There's 450 million monthly active users. 56.4% of those are male and 43.6% of those are female. So obviously, this is a male-dominant site, not by much, but that kind of will lead you in a direction of what type of content or how you want to present your content. 38.5% of the audience is in that 25 to 34 age group. Again, video, content, visuals, very important to this age group. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. And this is going to be your quick link to politicians, their staffers, and journalists. They are actively on Twitter talking about what they're doing, talking about the bills they're supporting, the things they're doing in their community. So if you are looking to have an impact or to get your message in front of those individuals, if that is your audience, Twitter is your platform. Okay. Next slide. So here are some tips When you're sharing content, if you're trying to grow your community on Twitter, if you're currently using that platform, you have to be active. You have to be retweeting content, doing @mentions, liking and replying to other people's posts. You have to be following individuals that you're interested in seeing the content that they're producing, but also so that they will look and follow the content that you are producing. If you are starting an advocacy campaign, a good course of action is to get all of your health centers in your state active together, following each other on this particular platform, so that when you post your messages, you can all do those things, mention and retweet, like and reply. The thing that you need to know about Twitter is it's short form. So you've got to be creative. You have a limited number of characters, 280 characters to get your message out there. That's not a lot. So you're really doing a lot of teaser comments when you're using Twitter. The other thing that you have to remember is you have to be on there when your audience is on there. And if your audience are the staffers for the politicians, as well as media, you're looking at early in the morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., or you're looking in the evening, 5 to 9 p.m. and Saturdays. That's when they're not doing their jobs. That's when they're available to look at content coming through the feeds. So that's something you want to remember before you do your strategy for Twitter. You also have to remember to be creative. Hashtags are where your content is organized on Twitter. That's how people find you. If they hear about your hashtag, that's what they can search for your content information through, and then they can see all of the information posts about that. Defend 340B, for example. If you're posting your content, you're putting hashtag Defend 340B on your post. When you search for that hashtag, you're going to see all the content associated with that hashtag. But remember, you don't want to overdo it. 1 to 2 is optimal, but no more than 4 hashtags. You want to be very strategic about the hashtags you place. You want to remember to have one for your overarching campaign, like a Defend 340B. You want to make sure that you have your organization's hashtag there, and maybe potentially another organization that you may be partnering with as well. Links are very key since this is a short form platform. You'll be linking to your landing pages for your advocacy content, and know that Twitter will automatically shorten those URLs when you post them in a tweet. And you also, when you're going to follow politicians, their staffers, or media, you have to be aware that there's a lot of bogus content out there. A lot of individuals like to create fake accounts for politicians, as well as celebrities, and certain key organizations. So you want to make sure you double check before you start following a page. Next slide. So one of the key means of getting your message in front of your target audience is using tags. What this also means is that you'll spend a lot of time manually posting your tweets. Right now, Twitter does not allow you to pre-tag visuals when you're using a scheduler. There are some like Buffer and some of the more prominent schedulers that are looking at workarounds for that key problem. But if you're looking to tag your representatives, you are going to have to manually put a schedule together and alert yourself when to do that post, especially if you're using content like videos and dynamic images. A way to get around that, if you are in use of a scheduler and you don't have time to do a lot of manual posting, is to use @mentions. You can put those in the tweet, and then your content will be seen in the feed of those individuals. You want to make sure that you're following the politicians, media outlets, journalists, and peers. And then when you're considering your content, understand video is pretty much king across all platforms, but you have to use brevity when it comes to Twitter. It's a 3-minute or less. They actually prefer that 30, 60, 90-second video clip it. Images are good. Quotes are very popular. And you want to make sure that you're timely with your tweets and that you have a consistent posting schedule. Okay. Next slide. So here is a little video that Rhiannon put together for us that kind of shows you how to post a content on Twitter. Thank you, Rhiannon. So now we're going to look at Facebook. This is a really good platform for connecting to others. Most of us are most comfortable with this platform because we use it in our personal lives. The premise behind this is connecting people with content that they want to share with their friends and family. And most individuals use this platform to do just that. They're sharing videos, pictures from family events, vacations, all of those fun things. So this is really that platform where you're connecting stories to people. Some of the stats for Facebook are there's 3 billion monthly active users. It is the most used platform worldwide. 1.93 billion of those are daily users. So there is always someone there to see a message. 75% of the audience is 30 to 49. And this is where you can link to your stories to key legislative staffers. Most of your chiefs of staff have an account on Facebook, and they're following content for stories involving constituents. So all of us as constituents can place stories here and put them in front of the right audience. Next slide, please. So here's some tips with using Facebook when you're doing an advocacy campaign. Again, video is a key visual content indicator. 8 billion views a day on Facebook, videos alone. But the thing you want to remember is you want to keep those at that 30, 60, or 90-second time frame. You also want to make sure that you have captions on your video, because 85% of the people who watch videos watch it without sound. So if you want to give them an understanding of what's occurring in your video messaging, you want to make sure captions are available. You also want to make sure that you have calls to action when it comes to Facebook. This is where people are connecting to messages, missions, they're connecting to each other. So you have to have some sort of call to action, whether it's for them to go to your website and become an advocate, whether it's for them to sign a petition, all of those things you want people on Facebook to take action. It's a great platform for stories from patients and providers. People are very connected to emotional stories. So this platform is very engaging when it comes to those types of content. And it helps people feel connected to what you're doing. For that audience purpose, Wednesdays 11 to 1 and Saturdays at 5 are good times to post. If you do post daily, remember that 1 p.m. is a good time for people to share your content. It's kind of the new lunch hour. And 3 p.m. is that good time for people to engage you because they're starting to wind down their days. And as community health centers, a thing that you should probably know is even your low-income patients are on Facebook. They use their smartphones for their primary source of internet because it is more affordable to them. And when they are on their internet and they're on their smartphones, they're on Facebook. So that's something to remember. Live streaming is a great idea when you want to educate people and answer questions about your advocacy campaign. It's a good way to recruit advocates as well. And you want to make sure that if you want to get a message in front of a targeted audience, that you look at ads or boosting your posts. Those are fee-based options, but it also allows you to highly focus and target your audience for your messaging as well. Next slide. You are able to tag messages with Facebook. It has come a long way. You, at one point, were not able to tag anyone that you were not friends with. However, you can tag people now. But what you have to remember is they don't automatically see your content. It will go into their feed, but they have to accept you and accept that information that they're going to be seeing. So you still can use Facebook to tag agencies, organizations, other groups that you're working with or mentioning, even those staffers and politicians, but understand there is a barrier between them seeing your message and you posting it. It's also a good idea to use Facebook groups. You can either join groups that already exist that are covering topics that you're using in your messaging, or you can create your own group. This allows you to meet new people, allows you to mobilize your advocates, share information, educate, and get support for your issues. And then you also want to make sure on this platform that you're following your peers, you're following those key staffers and legislators, and you're following media. Next slide. And here's another video on posting on Facebook. And last but not least, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is sole purpose is to make professionals more successful and connect them in a world of professionals. So you're probably thinking, how do I use LinkedIn for social media advocacy? Well, two ways you can use LinkedIn. One, employee advocacy, create ambassadors out of your employees and have them share your content with their networks. But you can also educate the audience because it's a more professional audience and it's a long form platform, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. There's 600 million users here. It's almost a 50-50 split with male audience versus female. 37% of the active users are 46 to 55. That is the larger user age group on this platform. 73% are professionals and they trust LinkedIn for information. And LinkedIn has done something unique. They've created a world just for journalists and editors. And what they've done is they've created this access for journalists and editors where they can be vetted to join this LinkedIn group, but they also have access to content so that they can follow individuals' feeds and information that's posted so they can come up with story ideas or resources for stories, something that's good to know. Next slide, please. So content is long form on LinkedIn. So this is nice if you want to share a newsletter, if you want to share a blog post, if you want to share white papers, organizational stats, impact one-pagers, all of that content is very shareable and acceptable on LinkedIn platform. Why? These are professionals. They want to learn something. When they look up your organization, they want to know that you're giving them intellectual content about what you're doing. The best times to post would be Tuesdays 9 to 10 and between noon and 1 on Wednesdays and 8 and 10 on Wednesdays and noon as well. What you need to remember here, these are professionals. They're going to look in the morning at the beginning of their days, around lunchtime, and maybe on Saturdays. So you want to be very cognizant of who your audience is. Providers are very strong on this platform. So your providers that work for your organizations, this is the platform of choice for them. So you can consider using their subject matter expertise as content for some of the messaging that you're posting on LinkedIn. As I mentioned before, this is a great platform for employee advocacy. It's a good way to have employees become micro-influencers for your advocacy campaign. And so you're going to be asking your employees for support, your board members, your donors. This is a platform that they can share that intellectual content with others and expose your message to a wider audience. You want to remember when you're posting content on LinkedIn that you're educating people. You want to tout your statistics, those impact studies. For 340B, it would be, what you're losing if 340B goes away. What is that reinvestment in your patients that is going to go away? Those are the types of messages that are going to resonate with this audience. Next slide, please. You want to become a thought leader. If someone hasn't stepped into that void, then you want to step into it. You want to make sure that the content that you're putting out there present your organization, even your CEO or your providers as thought leaders on these subjects. You can do live events on LinkedIn. You can do live events that promote discussions with CEOs, with providers, with patients about the impact of 340B. LinkedIn also has ads, and they're very targeted to professionals based on job title, function, industry. So if you're trying to get your message in front of a certain audience and you know what those key indicators are, LinkedIn ads can help you get your content in front of them. The thing about the profile with LinkedIn, you want to make sure you're sharing your mission, and you want to make sure you're describing how your mission is being fulfilled. That's what people on LinkedIn want to know about your organization. So next slide, please. And we're going to end with a video I'm posting on LinkedIn. Thank you. So last but not least, I'll leave you with some strategies and thoughts. When you're creating that social media advocacy strategy, you want to make sure that you have clear goals. You want to know who your target audience is, and you want to make sure that everything, including your content, is geared toward that audience and your overarching goal. You want to make sure that you do a profile audit. You want to know what's out there. Some organizations, I think you probably all remember when Foursquare was very popular and you checked into places. Well, if your organization didn't have a profile on a platform that was affiliated with that process, it created a platform profile for you. So you want to Google yourself, Google your organization, find out what's out there, and make sure that you get ownership of those platforms, and that you can either close the account if you're not going to use that platform, or you can update it and make sure it reflects your brand and your messaging. You want to have that constant, consistent, regular posting schedule. Schedulers are good for this if you don't have the manpower. If you are a department of one, which I know many of you, the health centers are, there are free schedulers out there that you can utilize that will help you schedule posting, make this a little less of a daunting task. You want to make sure that you are using Canva or Adobe Cloud or some sort of a platform and software to create those engaging visuals. And if you can't, then feel free to borrow from others who are in the fight with you, so to speak. NAC has some great resources when it comes to visuals and content. PCAs create good visuals and content, and so does CV340B as well. You want to make sure you use storytelling, which we'll get to a little later, and you want to connect with your local media to increase your visibility. They're always looking for resources for stories. They're always looking for content. You want to make sure you share your action alerts with your advocates. Once you've created that community, you have to stay engaged with them. You can't just ignore them and go silent. You have to have that consistent engagement with them. And you need to analyze your results. One thing that you should always remember is all of your social media advocacy, all roads lead to your website. So you want to make sure that you have a strong landing page for your advocacy efforts, and that all of your information that you want for anyone looking you up or searching your organization, that website is representative of that brand and message. Next slide, please. And finally, some parting thoughts. Republicans and Democrats, they didn't do much with independents. I guess they don't rank in this scaling, but they've done some statistics on Republicans and Democrats and their use of social media platforms and to what extent. So with Republicans, 62% of them use Facebook, 17% use Twitter, and 25% use LinkedIn. And with Democrats, it's pretty close. Facebook is 72%, Twitter 32%, and LinkedIn 35%. So it's good to know when you're developing your messaging, who's really out there seeing it. Republicans and Democrats use YouTube more than any other platform, 79%. So it's something to consider. If you want to create some of your video content on YouTube and link it when you're doing short form teasers on Twitter, you can do long form, obviously with a little bit Facebook and LinkedIn, but it's something to keep in mind. And Democrats are more likely than Republicans to use multiple platforms. So they are engaged on a lot of different platforms and don't have any qualms with, getting information from multiple sources. So something to know.
Sheila, I just want to call, oops, sorry, Rhiannon. I just want to call your attention to the questions. I know Rhiannon answered one live, but I'm curious as to your thoughts about the drop in engagement in Twitter because the new leadership and decreased safety measures. So what's your take on that?
Well, I will tell you this, with Twitter, a lot of the activity has been advertiser based that has escaped Twitter. They used to be the #1 platform for organizations like businesses to do ads on the platform. And that has diminished greatly since new leadership has taken over that platform. Right now, it still has not diminished the activity of the politicians or the media. They are still actively engaged in the platform. And the main reason why is Twitter is unique in the sense that it covers news as it's happening. So when someone sees a car accident or a fire or something is happening that's newsworthy, people are talking about it on Twitter. It's not an afterthought. It's not coverage after the fact. Your Facebooks and your LinkedIns and any of the other social media platforms tend to cover those types of news topics after they take place, where Twitter is talking about it the moment it's happening. So because of that direct public instantaneous conversation, Twitter is still a good platform for those community public conversations. But keep in mind, this is also where individuals see engagement from those who don't agree with them as well. So you have to be just as savvy and ready for that negative engagement as you do the positive when it comes to this particular platform.
Great.
And we had one more question. Are there any other platforms that you would suggest organizations getting on in lieu of Twitter if Twitter were to go away?
If Twitter goes away, clearly Facebook is that second platform that gets a lot of activity from the politicians. You don't necessarily get that direct conversation with them, but they do all have a presence there. The other thing you should consider is what I mentioned earlier. If you're building your advocacy base, is YouTube. If you are a participant in Google for Nonprofits, which I encourage all of you to do so, it's an easy application process. The thing about YouTube, it is a product of Google. And if you are a part of that Google for Nonprofits, you get free advertising dollars. So you also, that extends to Google as well. So you can create a more interesting, engaging content there, because that video is a very coveted content on all platforms, but you also can promote that content too. And that's really going to be interesting to see where YouTube transitions, because they're becoming more engaged, more linked to social media platforms because of that video engagement. And so I think that's probably going to be something that's going to see a huge increase.
That's interesting. Great. Well, thank you, Sheila. As questions are coming in, we are going to have another question and answer session right at the end. So we're going to go ahead and move on. Here is Sheila's information. We will be sending out these slides after the webinar with links as well. All right, which platform? Here's another poll for us. Which platform would you like to take a deeper dive into? Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or is there another platform, TikTok, something like that, that you might be interested in? Other TikTok, Instagram? Great. 9, yeah, okay. Well, maybe we'll be doing TikToks together, you guys. That sounds great. All right. All right, next up, we have Sarah from NAC, and she's going to be talking about storytelling, and then I'll be coming in right at the end. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Again, my name is Sarah Francois. I'm the Deputy Director of Grassroots Advocacy here at NAC. Very happy to be with you all this afternoon. First caveat is I see our good friend Leslie Walcott is on the line, and she gets full credit for these couple of slides that I'm about to share, because she actually just did an awesome presentation with our Advocacy Leadership Program last week. And so that is our Advocacy Leadership Program. We will be opening a spring semester up soon, so I'll put info in the chat about that, where we talk about all these different kinds of things, storytelling being one of them. So this is great timing, but I just didn't want to make sure that Leslie knew this credit goes to her for sure. I'm sure she could probably be doing this presentation much better even than I. Also, another quick caveat, just to tell a little bit more about myself, is that I spent 15 years at a community health center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as the Director of Fund Development and Marketing. So I know some of you, I was one of those people that wore multiple hats. So I can definitely relate to many of you on the call, and has really helped inform, how we create these trainings and how we really make things accessible to other people. I also am very cognizant of time, so I'll probably be going through my slides rather quickly so we can get through the rest of stuff, but very happy to be here. You all can read there on the slide about different things that you really want to consider when you're working with storytelling. I think the number one thing to really point out there is knowing your opinion is valuable. You are an expert in whatever it is that you're doing. If you're a communications person at your health center, you are the expert communicator. You are the one that is getting a lot of information funneled through. If you are a provider at your health center, and maybe you're a pharmacist or you work in the pharmacy, you are equally an expert, and you should be connecting with your communications team or whoever does communications at your organization to really share that messaging, because together you guys will have superpowers for sure. So just know that you are the expert. When we look at these pieces of storytelling, and again, this was another great slide that Leslie presented, and I think this originated with Marshall Gans, who kind of put this idea together. He's at the Harvard Kennedy School in terms of storytelling, and really starting with that story of me. So why is this topic important to you? Maybe you are a pharmacist, and so you see patients that are impacted by 340B every single day. So definitely be sure to start with why it's important to you, because that passion is going to come out in your storytelling. The second piece is transitioning to the story of us. And so this is, how is your experience shared with others? How can somebody relate to 340B if they don't even know what 340B is, right? There's probably a common link there, getting access to medication or something like that, that people can relate to, but you have to figure out how to put those pieces together in a way that you can create that shared experience to build that interest. And then lastly is creating that story of now. So how do you make it something that people want to act on? How do you ensure that it will create that action within them and really move them to do something that you're looking for them to do? So if it's a politician and you're trying to get them to vote a certain way or bring a certain bill to the floor, how is your story and how you present this going to really reinforce that point with them? Next slide, please. Or does this go on to? Yes. So these are some things too that you can keep in mind as you're writing for advocacy. So particularly when you're looking at social media, Sheila really presented some great points and things to consider. So a lot of this is just sort of reinforcing that. All of those things we just talked about, you want to make sure that you're including that in your message in obviously a very short and succinct way, because again, you're dealing with social media, you're dealing with character limits and other things. So you want to make sure that it's built for your platform. I would say the number one point here is that top one. Can someone who knows nothing about politics and nothing about your topic understand what you are saying to them? I can tell you, even working at a health center for as long as I did, I had no idea what 340B was for the longest time because we didn't even participate in the 340B program up until about 4 years ago. So I spent over a decade at my health center knowing nothing about 340B, and I can tell you that many legislators in our state knew nothing about it as well. And so I think that's a really important point to kind of note when you're writing, is that you are experts in 340B, right? But a lot of people may not be. And so you have to present it to them to a way that they can understand. Before I hand it over to Rhiannon, I just want to share kind of a story that relates to my health center work and 340B to kind of show you how some of these pieces can be put together. So like I mentioned, my health center did not have a pharmacy. We were not even part of the 340B program up until very recently. We had a number of pharmacies that were in the area, and so our patients always were able to get medications there. But one day, we actually ended up partnering with a local pharmacy, school of pharmacy, at one of our local universities, and we actually had a pharmacy student do a rotation at our clinic. She decided she wanted to work in an F2HC setting, and so she came and served her time with us. It was amazing. So she was a clinical pharmacist, again, because we didn't have an actual dispensing pharmacy. But she spent a lot of time creating programs for our patients related to diabetes and hypertension, because those were the two main chronic illnesses that many of the patients at our clinic dealt with. And it was amazing in 6 months what she was able to do. She put together education plans for patients. She put together education plans for providers so that they would be able to speak with their patients about certain topics. And she did a lot of med management and counseling, which was absolutely huge. She was very active in advocacy. And so she actually came to me and said, hey, how can we get more of these stories out here? And I said, well, the first thing is we have to have somebody who's willing to tell their story. And she said, I have just the perfect patient. She said, I have a patient that I've been working with for the last 6 months. She's 30 years old. She's a single mom of 3 kids. She works 2 jobs. She has no health insurance because both of her jobs are part-time. One of them is driving as a school bus driver. She also had uncontrolled diabetes because she was not able to get access to medication at a low cost, so she wasn't taking her diabetic medications. It was completely uncontrolled, to the point that she actually had to wear adult diapers when she was working as a school bus driver throughout the day because she had no other choice. She was in tears. She came into the pharmacist's office and she said, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm letting everyone down and I'm probably going to die. And our clinical pharmacist said, you're absolutely, none of those things are going to happen. In fact, we're going to work together as a team to make sure that you feel better, you get better, and you're able to be there for your family. And that's exactly what they did. Over a 6-month period of time, her A1C dropped within normal levels. I think her A1C was in like very high 9 or 10 range, and it was able to drop below 6 at the end of a 6-month period. Because we had then invested in 340B and become a 340B partner, we were able to get her access to reduced cost medications, even though she didn't have insurance. And I think the best piece of that is that because of the revenues that we were receiving from 340B, we were able to keep that clinical pharmacist and actually make her a full-time employee. So in the state of Wisconsin, clinical pharmacy was not billable. So basically she was doing everything she was doing for free, that clinical pharmacist was. And once she became a billable provider, they're working on that in the state of Wisconsin now. Hopefully that will become a more sustainable model. But at the time, our 340B revenues are what supported that clinical pharmacist to be working full time. And then not only that, she is also continuing to teach at the university where she was once a student, and she's bringing new students in every day to that health center in Milwaukee. Better yet, that patient was able to get a full-time job as a driver for the Milwaukee County Transit System. And so she got awesome benefits. She was able to move out of transitional housing. And because our clinical pharmacist had such a personal relationship with that patient over a period of long months, she was very willing to tell her story and help others. So that's just one example of how a communications person might partner with a provider to be able to get these stories. And you don't need, guys, like a list of like 50 stories. 50 stories would be great, but that's super overwhelming. Pick a couple that really stand out to you, and you will be able to use those moving forward. So that's all I have, because I know Rhiannon wants to share her story as well, which is very important, and some other resources. But thank you all so much, you guys.
Yeah, that's a wonderful example, Sarah, of a health center helping a patient and being able to use that story in a way that helps other patients. So as we go into moving in, you all know that I like doing interactive things. And so let's go ahead and do this. What word comes to mind when you think about 340B? This is going to get you prepped for the activity that we're going to do next. So I'm gonna have, let's see, medicine, pharmacy. Anybody else? We'll check back in on this as we go through, and I will post this on social media, linking everyone. Impactful, discount, equity, patients, access. Great, this is great. Awesome. Complicated, that's a good one too. I mean, it can be complicated. All right. So we're going to build together your 340B story. So grab a pen and paper, open a new tab with a Word document. This is going to be what some people call an elevator pitch. We're going to design it for social media. So just like Sarah was just talking about a community health center, and they have their story that they use, we're going to make one for you. So this is a personal one. You could make one for your organization, or you could make one for a patient that you know, and a story that you have there. So step one, identify yourself, where you're from, your name, title, organization, and location. This is basic. When members of Congress are looking on social media, they want to know who you are and where you're from, because they want to know if you're in their district. This also helps them pinpoint you as far as where you are on the spectrum of care. So you're a provider, you're a pharmacist, you're something, you're a communications manager. All of those are really important things to put in this first little bit. Step two, you're going to use a personal story to indicate why you care about 340B. Keep it short and to the point. So in Sarah's example, this woman had uncontrolled diabetes. She wasn't able to do a full job. She was having trouble getting to her job, staying at her job. She was in transitional housing. Because of 340B, she was able to get all of her numbers under control, and now she's in a secure job and a secure housing situation. If you're doing a personal one, for me, 340B is important because without the covered entity that saved my and my daughter's life during childbirth, it wouldn't exist. My daughter was sunny side up. So a lot of times when they're sunny side up, they don't want to come out. That's just how it works. And our 340B hospital was able to help deliver her safely. So this is going to be specific to you. Again, this is important because lawmakers, policymakers, journalists, they want to know this specific story. They want to have something that pulls the heartstrings to be able to share. Step three, end with a call to action. This is something that Sheila said. This is something that Sarah said. This is something that I'm going to say as well. Add a call to action. Never post on social media without a call to action. Include a hashtag or a link. Register here for information. Find out more, blah, 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 blah. So in here, we're looking at, that's why I want you to help me defend 340B. Click here to learn more, and then you can insert your link. So this link, NAC has a wonderful new advocacy website. You could put that in there. FAC has some amazing educational resources on their website as well. Put that link there. And of course, CV340B has some wonderful resources as well. So you put these three together. Hopefully you've written down a little bit of your thoughts from step one to step three. And at the end of this webinar, we are all going to go to Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and we're going to share this. So while Jennifer's talking, kind of think about what you want to say, maybe make some more notes, and we'll get you actually moving into an action on social media. All right, we're going to move into social media resources with Jennifer. Jennifer is with the HC Advocacy Network and NAC, and I am excited to turn it over to her.
Okay, hey everyone. So much good information so far. Just real quick before I dive into mine, I am one of those strong supporters of TikTok, and there is a growing group of politicians on there that I follow personally and comment and share. And so that is definitely a place to keep in mind. But yes, there are some security concerns. There's some governmental restrictions on phones. I saw that in the Q&A section. But overall, it is a fun way to get involved, and there is a growing number of politicians on there. So to get into mine, we created, here was really a group effort, a social media grab and go calendar. So you guys will have access to this and the slides once those are sent out to you with the link. And so what this is you can kind of see there on the left-hand side, it's divided by day, week, month. So if it's a particular day, there's a message that's pre-written that really ties in whatever that particular, let's say, Doctor's Day. You know, it's a message that supports community health centers and ties it into that specific day. Or if it's a week, that's a week-long celebration, or a whole month dedicated, such as March is National Social Worker Month. So there's graphics there that it has the link beside it. You can click it, download the graphic, grab that message, customize the message if you want to. As Sheila mentioned, if you have a program or software that you use for your graphics, such as Canva, I love Canva, you know, you can easily throw this graphic into Canva, put your logo on it as well, and put it straight up to social media. So like Sarah mentioned, you know, pull in little pieces from everybody. If you're wearing multiple hats and you need something to go on social media and you're a little bit pressed for time that day, you know, you can always check out this calendar. We've got it through the whole year, several different topics. And then if we'll go to the next slide. We also have a specific, one tab that's specific to 340B, a variety of graphics. Some are educational, some are like really poignant, like one has a lock and says, don't let your patients be locked out of receiving their medications. Some are more like infographic in nature, but again, it's easy to download those graphics, grab the message that's already there for you guys, and move along with your social media advocacy. Okay. And so then also you'll be able to get this, a guide to mobilize. It's just, again, another, it pretty much highlights a lot of what Sheila said. You know, tag your members of Congress, your representatives, make sure you're tagging their official accounts and not their campaign accounts. That is an important piece to remember. And you don't have to wait till there's a parade in your town to tag them. You know, you can tag them on a, you know, if you want to set like a monthly basis or, you know, a regular frequency, and just don't be scared to brag about what your organization is doing, what you're doing. You know, that's pertinent that they need to know so that they can continue to support us with money, because that's what it all comes down to, is we need those dollars and support, especially for 340B. So we have a couple of different initiatives, like one is Retweet of the Week Club. That's a really good opportunity. You know, if I'm speaking to the same 400 people every week, but if all of us get together and we say, well, we're going to send out this message and we're going to retweet it across all of our platforms, then that goes from reaching 400 people to it could reach 4,000 people. You know, so don't be afraid to make connections, retweet with people, do co-branded campaigns. That's really popular. So those are some of our resources. I will go ahead and wrap up my section so we can get to some Q&A. And there's some other resources here that are free online trainings. So you can definitely check those out. And definitely anytime, feel free to contact me or Sarah here at NAC, and I'm sure Sheila too, and Rhiannon, so that we can be definitely ready to help you out with any social media questions.
Yeah, and these we're gonna go ahead and do some question and answer, but the resources that Jennifer just laid out and the last ones from Sheila, those are all going to be going to you in an email. So you'll be able to click through the email, download the resources, and use them right away. So we have a Ask the Panelists here. If you have any questions, we've got a couple in the chat while we wait. So panelists, would you recommend that organizations pay for Twitter Blue? Especially with the discussion from the new site leadership, burying posts on timeline, non-verified accounts, etc.
You have other options on Twitter that you can investigate before committing to monetary resources to Twitter Blue. Twitter Spaces is one of those. You can create a Twitter chat profile and do consistent engagements with those tools that Twitter offers, and you're not paying for those. And you can post, you can send out and advertise when your Twitter space is available and who's going to be, what the topic of discussion is going to be, as well as with those chats. So that's an alternative if you're looking for something that's not going to bite you in the budget, so to speak. So I would recommend starting with those before you commit monetarily to a Twitter Blue. If you are going to spend dollars with Twitter, I would look more at ads that boost your content versus Twitter Blue at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't know what Jennifer or Sarah, what you think. I would say ads is more the way to go rather than becoming verified. This is a great question. Are there some general tips for dealing with negative engagement? I don't know. What do you guys think? I know how we handle it at CV340B. We try to be non-confrontational and lead with the facts. There are some things that we will just straight up delete. I mean, if it seems extremely inflammatory, we'll, no questions asked, we'll just remove it. But how do you guys at NAC and FAC deal with negative comments?
Not necessarily speaking to NAC's policy, but I know when I was at my health center doing communication, oftentimes I would choose to take conversations offline. I'd reply to them so that everybody could see that person was receiving a reply. And I would just say, would love to speak to you offline. I'll reach out personally and then just kind of remove it from that online situation, just to show that you have, in fact, acknowledged that this person has a question or something to say, but are kind of removing it from that public view moving forward.
Yeah, I think that the negative engagement for health centers, a lot of them deal with negative engagement about their provider services, like Sarah was mentioning. So I also agree with Sarah. What is usually recommended is that they take those conversations offline, but I would also suggest that if it's a resolution-based negative comment, that you post the resolution so people can see that you did come to a resolution in that engagement. They don't need to see the A to Z of it, but they should see that you do engage and that there is resolution to your engagement. Now, there are always going to be individuals on social media platforms, especially Twitter. There's trolling for a reason. It is there for a reason. And a lot of people are just there to fight and argue with you over points. So as long as you're leading with factual information, you stand by that. And as you said, Rhiannon, sometimes you're not going to get a resolution to those engagements. So you can delete those engagements. You can block those individuals. That is just part of the course when you start involving your organization on social media. And that's something you have to have a plan and be prepared for. So that's always part of the discussion before you get started.
Yes, and somebody put in the Q&A, develop a plan and rules around negative interactions online. This is a great idea for anybody who's on social media. Make sure that you have a plan in place. So thank you for that. We have this question on here. Should we be tagging politicians and organizations too in our posts where appropriate?
So I think we talked about this a fair bit, but I'll tell you from the lobbyist perspective, what I hear from the Hill is that they, meaning the Hill staffers, are regularly, routinely reviewing social media and bringing it to their bosses, usually first agenda item when they come in, oftentimes on like Monday night or Tuesday morning. The comms people have become much more important in a congressional office, and they give them the litany. Here, Senator Brown is where you got mentioned. People are talking about you or they're not talking about you. It is critically important to politicians. When you're tagging them, they are paying attention. They're looking at that information, and it's helping to guide their decisions for good or for bad, frankly. So back to my commercial about you guys are our front line of defense. Congress isn't solving our problems with 340B. The courts aren't yet solving our problems with 340B. HHS can't give us a full resolution. You're what we have left. We need you all to do a whole lot more of this in order for us to win on the various battlefronts we're fighting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to add to that, Peggy, it used to be when we would do our internships with politicians that we were reading every magazine and newspaper, and we had subscriptions to everything, and we were doing clippings, and that would be the regular. We would bring in this book of clippings and say, here's where you were mentioned. But to your point, social media has become that, because everything is online, including those publications. Yeah. So when you're walking, as a former intern, when I'm walking into the office, that is what I'm presenting. You know, everything that has been spoken, the name, a project, whatever bill they're for or against, that's coming into that meeting with me. So I concur. It is not a waste of time to tag them, to put your message in front of them. The staffers are looking at it. It may be late at night and on weekends, but they are looking at it.
They're looking at it. Well, and the other thing I want you guys, you three panelists, to talk about Lisa's question, which is oftentimes it's a half a person or one person who's able to do this. How are you able to enlist your board, your employees, other people? Not just, hey, it's not just my job here, it's everybody's job. How do you do that effectively?
This is a huge question, because most are departments of one, and I'm a department of one, truthfully. You know, I have a lot, I'm going to have interns, but as a department of one, what I would suggest is pick the platform that best suits your organization. If that is Facebook, then develop your content and your advocacy plan around that platform. And when you're engaging your employees, your peers, and your board members, you're presenting them the content to share. It's easier to say, hey, share this, follow us, share what I'm posting, and widen that audience than try to juggle 15 different things at once. If you can get interns, do it. And, because they're going to be very social media savvy, and they can help do that, or consider a scheduler. Like I said, there are many great scheduling products out there that are free or deeply discounted for nonprofits. And that might be another way to manage multiple platforms if you're being asked to do so. Great.
We are just at the top of the hour. Anything else burning we should cover in that last minute we have?
Well, you know me, we like to move you into action. So I'm going to move you into action. There were 90 people on this call. I hope to see 90 different posts on social media telling your pitching elevator pitch, all of that. So let's see you on social media. Make sure to be liking and retweeting. And 95 at our height. So that's exciting. Like, retweet, use hashtags Defend340B and value CHCs. And thank you so much, panelists. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, everyone. This was lovely. This will all be up on the website. Links are going to your email, and we are excited to see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Fight the fight.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Rhiannon.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.